I came out of Wall Street, and I'll give everybody a little bit of my background. I left school. I went to college for 1 year, right?
Yep.
And I was like, this is a waste of time. I couldn't figure out why people. Ever since I was a little kid, I knew essentially I wanted to be a salesperson, right? Because I knew that I had charisma. I knew that I was very intelligent. I know I have a cognitive intelligence, which is helpful, right? And so in that type of way, there's artistic intelligence. There's lots of different ways intelligence expresses itself. So I knew I wanted to be in sales. I knew I wanted to be in finance, and I knew that I was going to be an executive in a large company, right? And at that point, I would no longer be in sales. I'd be in charge of revenue, or I'd be the CEO of it, or I would found the company. So I knew that, but I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that that's what was going to happen. So I always read books with that kind of ambition, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And when I got to college, I was like, this is a waste of time. I don't need these courses. These courses, I saw my future. I was like, these courses have nothing to do with what I'm interested in. I don't care about your remedial English or whatever English they put me in. They automatically stick you into these things. It was like 100 English, whatever it was. They score you on a thing. And I was like, I'm not interested in this. I've been, I want to go into finance. I want to go to Wall Street. I knew what was happening. So I cold called into about 15 different firms. And back then you had the New York Times, right? And you would look through the New York Times as Sundays and you would mark them off. I'm 54. If somebody here is as old as I am, then they'll remember those days, right? And we used to go through the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times Classifieds Sunday. We used to go through them. I cold called into about 20 different firms. I cold called into, I got about somewhere between 7 and 11 interviews. I finally had a choice between Goldman Sachs and Grunthal and Company. And Goldman Sachs, the top analyst there I would have worked under, his name was Rick Sherlin. And he discovered like Microsoft and Novell and Lotus companies a little bit before your time. And I decided to go to Grunthal, where he was doing the tech hardware type of stuff. Then they, after a few years, they paid for my college, right? They were like, Adam, now you need to you need to go to college. I was a large shareholder for my clients and myself, a company named Micron. Micron was going through a lot of short squeezes, and I'd bore everybody with what was going on, but I did really well. I started my own company, my own research boutique. It was bought by Alex Brown. I decided I didn't want to go back to work in a Wall Street environment. It was boring to me. I felt like I had done it before. I wanted to do new things. So I traveled with my wife for a few years. Then I became an investor in a company called Pseudo Programs, which was kind of like broadcast.com during that time. They were competing companies. I can tell you all about broadcast.com. And they were competing companies. They were working on real player stuff, again, before your time. Ultimately, I cashed out of a few of those positions. It used to be called Silicon Alley. Jason Calacanis was there. Fred Wilson was there with his wife, Joanne. I had invested $50,000 in my Wall Street days in a company that's now called Insperity. Okay. And Insperity was preparing to go public, and they needed to build up a North American, a presence on the East Coast. And I took over, sales. We built out the East Coast incredibly well. We did incredibly well with Rush Limbaugh. We were one of his big advertisers. He was really good to us. They created a campaign for us, so it's unfortunate to see his passing, right? And in 2006, I was one of their largest shareholders. So I had a choice. The stock went down to $2 a share. People were shorting our stock down. New York Stock Exchange listed stock. I acquired millions of shares. I had a choice of either staying as sales, right? And everything was good. I sold a company to them, and long story, but I did well. Or being one of the largest shareholders. You can't do both. So they made that very, very. They told me pretty blank, point blank. You've got to make a decision. We've been postponing this for a long time. I left. Stock went to $60 a share. Today it's called Insperity. Became an investor in a company called TriNet. I cashed out of TriNet when it went public. They did an IPO. Was an investor in a company called Workday, which also IPO'd. 2013, I had 3 companies IPO'd. In 2014, I think it was like 3 companies by 2014. And I was massively depressed, right? I was massively depressed because I always lived in anticipation of earnings tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I'm always planning for earnings tomorrow. I'm always waiting for the next earnings call, for the next event to occur. And I no longer had that in my life, right? I no longer needed that in my life. And I knew when I was a kid that I was going to retire early, but I never thought of what I was going to do when I retired. I just knew it was going to happen, right?
You think that's where Bezos is at right now? Now that he's stepping
No,
back from Amazon?
no,
Focusing
absolutely.
on space.
Oh yeah, he's going to be a trillionaire. It's not even
Wow.
any him and Musk. Hopefully, will be have a little bit more money, right? I like to Elon Musk, but he's going to be a trillionaire. I'm a big fan of Space Force, so I was massively depressed, and I had no awareness of the moment. I had no awareness even of the past, right? So when I would meditate, when I would try and meditate, my mind would move around too much. I couldn't hold my thoughts back. So here's an exercise I learned, right? And it's so easy, but it shows you the way your mind works. So I guess we shouldn't do it now, but when you close your eyes, right? Do it with a stopwatch, right? Close your eyes for 1 minute. Don't do it now if people don't want to do it now.
I was going to do it right now. No? All right.
Okay.
Go ahead. Explain.
We're going to put on
No. Let's just explain it.
So when you close your eyes for 1 minute, it's actually might be very excruciating to you. And let me tell you what happens. These are natural processes in the mind. What happens is the mind wanders. You're thinking about, your mind time travels, right? You're thinking about meetings that you had, right? Yesterday, you're thinking about meetings that you're going to have tomorrow. So the first thing is the mind time travels, right? The second thing, and this is proven, this is scientific. These are all proven. I mean, they have sciences around this. New sciences, behavioral sciences, which they didn't have before. So another thing that's going to happen is you're going to question your own identity. So Adam Krigler is the type of person. You've already helped me understand your identity. Anthony Pompliano, who does a lot of meditation, very smart guy, says his identity is Anthony Pompliano is a happy person. I grilled him on that, but nevertheless. So Adam Krigler has already identified a little bit of his identity to me because you told me about that letter, right? So when you're thinking, when you're meditating, your mind's going to travel, and then you're going to be thinking about your own identity. Adam Krigler is the type of person who. How do you think about yourself? How does your mind treat itself as a client, right? So you're going to be thinking about Adam Krigler is the type of person who. Now, when I was working nonstop for 30 years, I thought of myself as Adam is the type of person who can get things done, that's reliable, that can close deals. If he says this is going to happen, then it's going to happen. He's reliable, that will always exceed expectations, that can represent, himself and his companies well, and he's very candid. I thought about those things. All my identity was work related. Nevertheless, when people shut their eyes, mind time travels. Other thing the mind does is it says to itself, Adam Townsend is the type of person who, and it ponders that. It really does. Then the other thing is your mind is saying, how do you want me to think of myself, right? You're a client of your mind.
Yeah, so, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So then the mind is going to do something else. The mind is going to say, I want Adam Krigler, right? The mind, while you're meditating, you're going to say, I want people to think of Adam Krigler as the type of person who, right? And so I do, meditate, right? But it's been very painful for me because it's not a natural behavior for me. So I work out, right? And because I always worked out with weights, and I never really did a lot of cardio, when you're doing weights, you become a very shallow breather, right? Because you're just going like that, right? Yeah. And then you stop, you just kind of do nothing for a minute, and then you do very shallow breath. That's not a good thing. So I even have to practice breathing. And Jim Shaughnessy and I have discussed this a lot because both of us are meticulous log keepers. I keep a note of everything I've done that day. I actually have a daily planner, right?
Yeah.
And on my daily planner, I'm going to include, what my schedule is. I have a lot of businesses in India, so I live in two time zones. I live part-time in Bengaluru, India. And and I'll think about what I did that day, right? And as I'm doing it, I have slots for myself, right? So I slotted this time, right? And but I also, more important to me, is something I learned from Seneca, because I didn't have parents who understood me. I'm a nuclear reactor. I'm a nuclear explosion. I didn't have parents that knew how to deal with a nuclear explosion, right? They were lower middle class people. They didn't know what to do with a kid that's a nuclear explosion, right? So when I finally cashed all my checks, now I had to solve me, and I sought fathers. One of them was my mentor, right? I had a few different mentors. One of them was Reese Schoenfeld, who I miss very dearly. Okay.
Yeah.
And another one I acquired was Seneca, Letters to Lucilius, and On the Shortness of Life. And I learned that for me to have an appreciation of the moment requires effort, and it requires practice. So in order for me to improve my awareness of the moment, so now what I do, and I've been doing this for 10 years, I have every single one for 10 years, every single one. Jim Shaughnessy does also. Ask him about it. Amazing guy. Amazing guy. So I will keep a log of what time I woke up, what time I got out of bed. Did you know? I can tell you the way the mind works. And if it takes me a long time to get out of bed, from the time I wake up to get out of bed, it means I'm going to be somewhat depressed, right? Because I have to have an awareness of my depression, because my baseline's a little bit low. So, and I can mash that up. So then my schedule, because I deal with India, begins pretty early, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll in my notations, in my daily planner, I'll say, did I speak too much? And I'll go back and kind of have a recitation of the conversations I had during the day, right?
Okay.
And I'll think, in this conversation, did I speak too much? Did I listen, right? Just kind of an awareness of myself, right? And then I'll say, did I deceive myself or others? Because one of the things I've learned is how easy and how destructive it is to deceive yourself or others. So although I've discussed somewhat money here and investing, one of the observations I had to make of my own behavior and character was that once I had cashed out, because I had nothing in my life but money, all I would talk about was money.
Yeah.
And I had to have an awareness of that. So that's how I learned of that. And if I were to do one right now, I am doing one right now, but it has to do with my businesses in India and learning languages and a few other things. I have hundreds of different iterations. It depends on what behavior I'm trying to observe. Right now, I'm trying to observe language and cultural skills and kind of the cordiality of different cultures. If I were to have one right now, and I've thought about this, I would change my social media, right? Because I've gotten too addicted to it over the last 2 years, and
It's rather addicting, isn't it?
Too much of my social interaction is on social media for the last 2 years, and I would change that. And I think that's a part of deception. I think it's a dangerous thing. So one of the reasons I've done these periscopes is because I missed all the intimacy, and this allows me to kind of relieve myself of the burden of social media in my mind and kind of the deception of 280 characters and all that, and kind of bring the real relationship in with these people that I only know through this channel.
So you said a few amazing things right now. One thing I like about what you essentially were just explaining was understanding yourself, and I think that alone is something that is missing nowadays. And then you even touched on the fact that not only do we need to get to know ourselves more, but we need to reconnect with others, because that both of those things are being lost nowadays with the internet age. With, I mean, not even the internet's kind of still newer. Like you said, the last 2 years, the social media has really ramped up. But
let me ask you a question. Right? If your behavior is bad, you've acquired a bad habit or whatever it is. Your wife most likely will make some observation of it and make some, kind of a courteous way of bringing it to your attention. Um,
Yeah.
but it's much different in an environment when you're like in a temple, right? Or whatever a person's faith is, and the faith is not necessarily the most important thing, but people who are more attuned to this type of stuff,
Okay.
and they're very attuned to kind of the dangers of different deceptions, and there's so many. So listening, and I haven't listened that well, so I'm going to put that in my notations, happens to be one of them. It's
Yeah.
actually a deception. So, but your wife is not going to tell you because she already accepts that as part of you. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, she does call me out on things that I may need brought to my attention, which I appreciate from her a lot. But my question to you is, how do we bring that back? How do we explain to people the importance of understanding yourself, self accountability, self understanding, and self awareness? Because it's that alone. I feel like if people focused more on themselves and not what others think of them, what's going on in the rest of the world, when they really cater to themselves and make sure that they're taken care of, I think a lot of issues are going to start slowly solving themselves, because people are not going to start worrying about others so much. And I think that's a big issue right in this day and age right now. Where do we start there?
I don't have any answers for you. I have no answers to anything. I rely on others. I miss very much my I'm not a Buddhist, but I miss very much my Buddhist retreats, right?
Yeah.
I very much miss my bhakti retreats where we would go away for a few days, and people who are more experienced in practice. Because when people say, I'm a spiritual person, and I say, well, do you practice it? And they're like, no, but I'm a spiritual person. That one of the things that's a deception. Did you know
Yeah.
that?
No,
That
but it makes sense to me.
exactly. So I used to be that person that used to say, well, I'm a spiritual person. Okay. Until one day, a minister said to me, well, let's talk about this. How do you practice? And then I realized I was deceived. In fact, she told me she wasn't as blunt about it, but she's good at it, right? I'm
Yeah.
not good at these type of things,
Being nice
but
about
she
it.
was good at it. And that's a deception, because I wasn't a spiritual person. That was just my way of, my mind servicing its client, and it was very bad because we didn't have an honest relationship. So spirituality requires practice, and practice is very difficult to acquire out of a book. You really need that human engagement. And that's
Absolutely.
a dangerous thing, what's happening right now. People are becoming so lipstick. They're making themselves their own kind of God. It's a dangerous thing.